Kevin Jennings is back for the SMU Mustangs after a very successful season in 2025 that culminated with a bowl game win over the Arizona Wildcats, who also had a very good season. Another one of the highlights of the year would definitely be the upset win at home in overtime over the Miami Hurricanes, who ended up going on to the national championship. SMU ended up finishing the season with a very solid record of 9-4.
Now, looking at this offseason, as Jonah mentioned, bringing back starting quarterback Kevin Jennings, along with three starters on the offensive line. And I don't know who that last offensive starter is. It's either a tight end or one of their younger wide receivers. But that's the majority of what they're losing offensively. Logan Parr was one of their starting guards who was very, very good last season, as well as a good chunk of their receiving core from Jordan Hudson, Romello Brinson, as well as running back TJ Harden and Chris Johnson Jr. Defensively, the biggest losses they have are coming on the defensive line and their two starting safeties, but they do return a good chunk of that secondary and their linebacker core. So overall, a very solid building blocks, or a very solid couple building blocks to kind of rebuild this team into another contender. Recruiting rankings, number 31 in high school, number 36 in the transfer portal, and number 30 overall. I honestly think that transfer portal ranking might be a little bit low considering some of the higher end talent that they got. They did get two 4 stars in the portal, including one that I think is going to make an instant impact for the Mustangs, and that's Yannick Smith coming in from East Carolina at wide receiver. I mean, 6'3", 207 is just ridiculous. He's going to be an amazing weapon for Kevin Jennings to utilize. That other 4 star, I believe, is a tight end coming in from Texas A&M. I don't know if I'm remembering the school right, but I do believe it is a tight end. So just another very solid weapon for Kevin Jennings. But the rest of them, I mean, it's a lot of defensive transfers coming in, particularly Jimmy Wyrick is the one safety they added. Now he is a little undersized and he is only a sophomore despite playing 5 years at the collegiate level. A lot of medical red shirts, I'm gonna assume. And then they also bring in Ira Singleton to come off the edge from USF. So a lot of this transfer portal class is actually on the defensive line. Marcus White coming in from UMass as well. But they also added in Kendrick Raphael, running back from Cal, to replace the two running backs that they lost. And he was very good last season for the Golden Bears. And I think that's just going to be a very dynamic backfield for the Mustangs next season with Kevin Jennings, because we know Kevin Jennings is one of the best dual threat quarterbacks at the collegiate level. So grades wise, talent's going to come in at an A minus. Now, Yannick Smith is doing a lot of the heavy lifting for that, as well as that 4 star tight end they have returning. Returning wise, they also bring in a lot of talent. I mean, obviously Kevin Jennings, but it's going to be a lot of new faces, especially on that defensive line. Needs, it's only going to be a B plus. They didn't get any offensive linemen in the portal that I remember. And defensively, the big one is only getting the one safety, and considering he is a little undersized now, obviously people can step up that are already at the program, but just for this purpose, it's only going to be a B plus. And overall, it's going to come out to a B plus grade, very close to being an A minus. I thought about bumping it up just because of some of that high end talent they have coming in, but I think a B plus is fair for right now for the Mustangs, but still a very solid team going into next season.
And they start off the year with a road trip to face Florida State. Now, Florida State's bringing in Ashton Daniels from Auburn last season to be their starting quarterback. And it looks like the job is basically going to be his, not really much competition to be had there. Overall, I think Florida State kind of had another disappointing season last year. And I feel like this is a do or die year for Mike Norvell. He really needs to get things going in order to not get fired. So I think Florida State might have a slight chance here to start off the year with a bang, especially at home. We saw them do it against Alabama last season. But really, overall, I think SMU is the better team here and should be able to get a win. UC Davis will be a free game after that. And then the road trip to Louisville is going to be very difficult. Louisville is bringing in former Ohio State backup quarterback Lincoln Keenholz to be their starter. They're returning Isaac Brown, one of the best running backs in college football, and just overall enough returning production that this is going to be a very scary team in the ACC once again. They also were able to beat Miami last season in a very close game. So just overall, I think this Louisville team is going to be a really tough team to beat. Talent-wise, I think they're very similar. So we have this one as about a 50-50 game at this time.
After that, Missouri State, and unfortunately, that's going to be a 100% chance because Jonah is not playing them in an online dynasty. That is his team, and he has done very well in the first 3 years with the program, but unfortunately, they don't have the privilege of having him as their coach and calling all the plays. So, 100% chance for the Mustangs there. And then Boston College after that. Boston College was arguably the worst team at the Power Four level last year. I believe they only won 2 games. Bill O'Brien, kind of similar to Mike Norvell, is fighting for his career this season. They have another disappointing year, and I would very much expect him to be out as the head coach. And honestly, I don't think they have a super competitive team, at least compared to the Mustangs with who they have coming back. SMU had a 90% chance right now. And then they have a bye week before a home game against Virginia. A lot of home games in a row here. And Virginia is going to be an interesting case because they were really good last season, bringing in Chandler Morris to be their new starting quarterback. And obviously, they had probably their best season in a couple years, maybe even a decade, and went to the ACC title game and did end up losing to Duke. But they were very good. And I think they've started to come around as a program and are here to stay, honestly. They bring in Bo Prabula to be their starting quarterback from Missouri, as well as also Eli Holstein from Pitt. So I do think Prabula will end up being the starting quarterback, but if something were to happen, I still think Eli Holstein will be a solid backup. So the quarterback situation is going to be just fine for Virginia. It's just going to be all the other aspects of the team with who they lost and can they repeat having that success in back-to-back seasons? Because sometimes we see teams, it's 1 year of this immense amount of success, and then they kind of fall off and revert to form. Not necessarily being a horrible team, but just being an average, above average team. And I think SMU has actually proven that they can be consistent year to year. So we're going to slightly favor them here at home, but this is definitely a tough game for the Mustangs and one that they could actually end up dropping at home.
And then it's another home game. Like Connor said, a lot of these in a row, four straight for SMU. This one's against Cal. And I do think that Cal actually is going to be a solid team next year, probably around the middle of the pack in the ACC. Their young freshman quarterback returning. I'm not even going to try and pronounce his name. So you guys all know who I'm talking about, though. He's going to be very good once again, I think, this season. So Cal does have a lot of young talent. It's just really whether or not they can put that together this season, or maybe if it's just one more year out for the Bears, maybe they'll go all out in the transfer portal and try and make a push towards a conference championship in 2027. Overall, though, with how far they have to travel, it's not as bad as most of their other ACC games, but still, Texas is quite a distance. So I do think that SMU has a sizable advantage here at home. Then SMU finally goes back on the road to face Syracuse. Really not much to look forward to for the Orange this season, in my opinion. We predicted their fall off last year, and we do expect that to stay relatively the same this season. So I think SMU, once again, large favorites on the road. And then Virginia Tech at home. Now, this one is more intriguing. Virginia Tech obviously bringing in James Franklin as their head coach, and he brings in a majority of the Penn State roster from last season following him. And just overall, I do really like the talent that Virginia Tech has. And I think that they're going to be able to compete with a team like SMU. Home field advantage is going to factor in a decent bit here, which is why we have SMU favored, though.
After that, a Wake Forest team that surprised a lot of people last year, except the one guy in our comments in a video we did last season. But can they, kind of similar to Virginia, have that same amount of success? I think Virginia is in a lot better position to do that, but Wake Forest, I still think can be a pretty sneaky team, but talent-wise, I think they've lost too much that led to that success last year. It's also at home for the Mustangs here with a returning starting quarterback that has been good for at least 2 years now at the program. I really Don't see Wake Forest winning this game, but it's could be end up being a little bit closer than some people might anticipate. But I'm gonna trust the consistency that I've seen out of SMU at this point, 75%. And then two road games to end their season. The first one is going to South Bend to take on Notre Dame. Everyone knows the story with Notre Dame this past year, how they opted out of that bowl game after being left out of the college football playoffs. And now they're going to be back with a vengeance. CJ Carr was very good last year in his first year as the starting quarterback for the Irish. And I think he's only going to get better considering that his wide receiver room is arguably going to be the best in the country next year with the amount of returning talent and new talent that they have, including getting two transfers from Ohio State and Milan Graham. And the name is escaping me, but
Quincy
I'm
Porter.
forgetting Quincy Porter. Thank you. Um, the only concern on the offense is replacing their starting running back, Jeremiah Love and Jadarian Price, both off to the NFL, but it's Notre Dame. They always figure out something at the running back position. And then defensively, they're going to be just as good, if not better, with so much returning talent on that defense. This is going to be the toughest game of the year for SMU, in my opinion. Obviously, there's a couple other ones on the schedule on the road, but on the road at South Bend against a Notre Dame team that is very likely going to be top five, at the very least top 10 at this point in the season. It's going to be a tough ask, 30% chance for the Mustangs right now. And then on the road against Stanford. Stanford's not very good. I don't think they're going to be too much better than they were last year. The only redeeming factor that they have is that this is a home game for them, for a team that is not on the West Coast. And for some reason, Stanford always manages to get at least one upset or make one game a lot closer than it should be against a great team, especially later on in the season. I do think SMU is much better than them and that they shouldn't really fall victim to that. So overall, a very manageable schedule for SMU. The two games you really have to look out for, maybe three games, is on the road at Notre Dame and Louisville, and then that Virginia game or the Florida State game, depending on how Florida State ends up being, as well as that Virginia Tech game.
Yeah, overall, projection wise, it's going to come out to about 9.2 wins. We have them going 9-3, so kind of just under that. I feel like 9-3 or 10-2 is very possible though for this SMU team. Like Connor said, depending on how those 50-50 games go. National championship wise, plus 12,500 odds, which is good for tied for 25th in the country. So, very solid chance, I think, for SMU to go far this season. Really just got to be able to win one of those 50-50 games, and you're looking at a potential conference championship and college football playoff berth. So, thank you guys for watching. Please make sure to like and subscribe, and we'll see you in our next video.